When folks talk about retiring in Winston-Salem, they usually bring up the affordable cost of living, the friendly southern charm, and even that sweet, vinegary North Carolina barbecue. But here's the deal. Retiring in Winston-Salem isn't for everyone. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why Winston-Salem might not be the dream retirement spot you've been hearing about. I'm Blake Ginther. I've been a realtor here in Winston-Salem for over a decade and have helped countless people retire to the city. I've seen what works and what doesn't. Some of these, well, they might surprise you, especially if you've only seen the highlight reel online. So if Winston-Salem's on your radar, let's dive in. Here's the first thing you need to know about Winston-Salem. It is very car dependent. If you're coming from a place where you could walk to the grocery store, catch a bus to the doctor, or bike to a coffee shop, well, you're going to feel the difference. Winston-Salem has a walk score of just 22 out of 100. That means that almost all errands require a car. The bike score isn't much better at 29, so unless you're planning to live right downtown, which I'll talk about in a second, you're going to need a vehicle to get around. You can live downtown and get that walkability score. Downtown Winston-Salem has a walk score of 81, and that's considered very walkable. But here's the thing. Downtown is a little more of that urban scene. It's got a nightlife, more activity, and it stays open later. For a lot of retirees, that's not exactly what they're looking for. Most people who retire here, they want that peace and that quiet. Maybe not the buzz of a city center. The irony is, we actually do have a lot of retirees living downtown. They're just in their 50s and 60s, so it's just not like downtown is off limits. It's just more of an urban vibe than the average Winston-Salem person wants. And if you're thinking, well, I'll just use public transportation, let me give you a reality check. The Winston-Salem Transit Authority runs about a 28 bus route. Most of these work on a hub and spoke model, and that means you've got to go downtown first before you get a transfer to go where you're going. It's not the most efficient system. The buses run until about 11 o'clock on weekdays and Saturdays, but on Sundays, they stop at 6:30. So if you don't have a car, your mobility is pretty limited, especially on the weekends. There's no light rail here, no subway, no commuter train. It's buses or your own vehicle. That's it. The city knows that this is an issue. In September of last year, they announced a review of the transit system. They know the current setup isn't working for everyone. There's hope for improvement down the road, but right now, this is what we've got. Here's the positive sign though. If you do have a car, Winston-Salem is super easy to get around. Traffic is nothing compared to Charlotte or Raleigh. You can get from one side of town to the complete opposite in less than 20 minutes. Parking is usually a breeze. Caveat on downtown, which we'll get into in a second. And honestly, having a car here makes it even more sense when you consider our weather, which I'll talk about later on. And the 4 seasons we get actually change how you'll want to get around throughout the year. And if you like having your own space, your own schedule, and the freedom to drive whenever you want without dealing with public transit, this setup might just be fine for you. A lot of suburban neighborhoods have restaurants and shops that you can pull right up to. Clemens, for example, has great family-owned restaurants. Clemens Kitchen, 2520 Tavern, Raku Ramen. You can park right in front, walk in, and enjoy your meal without any hassle. You don't have to go downtown to find great food and have easy access. At the end of the day, if you're okay driving and you don't mind having a car as your main way to get around, this won't be a deal breaker. But if you're dreaming of a walkable retirement where you can stroll to the farmer's market or catch a bus to your doctor's appointment, Winston-Salem, it's going to be a tough sell. And speaking of downtown, that brings me to my next issue that catches people off guard. I just mentioned that downtown is the one walkable area in Winston-Salem, but here's where it gets interesting. If you want to visit downtown, you're probably going to have to deal with some parking headaches. As of May of this year, the city increased on-street parking rates to about $1.50 an hour. Yeah, that's up from the old quarter meter system that literally just went away. So yes, that's a pretty sizable jump for those of us that were used to it. They also switched to a pay-by-phone app, ingeniously called Pay by Phone. Now, that's caused some frustration, especially for folks who aren't tech savvy or just want to throw some quarters in a meter and be done with it. By the way, side note, I could never find quarters. I think that's probably why they switched. There are 2 city-owned parking decks downtown, the Cherry and 6th Trade Deck and the 4th and Church Deck. They're open on weekdays, but the hours are limited. And the Cherry deck closes at 11 p.m. The Fourth and Church deck closes at 7 p.m. So if you're planning a late dinner or an evening show, you might have to just hunt for some street parking or walk a few blocks. But I promise you, you'll find the spot. This is one of those things that matters less if you're thinking about, big 55 plus communities that might have seen in Florida or Arizona. But I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes because retirement community situations here are pretty different from what most maybe expect. But here's where it gets frustrating for a lot of people. If there's not a parking lot right in front of a restaurant, some folks just won't go. People want to pull up, park, and walk right in. They're not interested in walking a quarter of a mile or finding a parking spot to where they're going. So some downtown restaurant owners have even said that the parking situation is hurting their business. A few folks said it's a big reason why they had to close. So it's not just an inconvenience. It's a real issue that affects the downtown experience. But here's the good news. If you live in one of the suburban neighborhoods I mentioned earlier, this isn't a problem you'll deal with on a regular basis. You can skip downtown and stick to the neighborhood spots where parking is super easy and free. So if you're someone who doesn't mind staying out of the downtown core and exploring suburbs instead, this won't be a big deal. But if you're hoping to live in a walkable downtown neighborhood where you could easily grab dinner or catch a show without worrying about where to park, just know that it's not as convenient as you might think. Now, let me tell you about something else that surprises people moving here from other retirement hotspots. If you're coming from a place like Florida, Arizona, or even Las Vegas, you might be used to seeing these massive master planned 55 plus communities. The ones with resort style amenities, social clubs, golf courses, and all kinds of activities built right in. The Villages in Florida is a great example. It's like a city within a city, designed just for active adults. We don't have that in Winston-Salem. According to 55places.com, which is one of the top resources for retirement communities, there are only 2 age-targeted communities right here in Winston-Salem. One is Freedberg Village, which has 329 homes. The other is Highlands at Meadowlands, which has 70 homes. Both of these are age-targeted, meaning they're designed for adults 55 and over, but they're not strictly age restricted. So you might have some younger folks living there too. If you want a larger community with more amenities, you'd have to look at outside of Winston-Salem. For example, Trilogy at Lake Norman, which has 1,100 homes, is in Denver, about an hour away. Crestwind in Charlotte with 850 homes, also about an hour or so away. So if you're set on living in a big, active adult community with tons of amenities, you might have to leave the Winston-Salem area to find it. But before you write us off completely, most people here don't need a 55 plus community because the whole city is built for easy living. Winston-Salem keeps showing up on top 10 lists for best places to retire. That's not because of a master planned community, it's because the entire area is affordable, comfortable, and low stress. I mean, it is super easy to live here. You can pick a neighborhood based on what you like. Maybe it's a quiet suburban street with big trees. Maybe it's a golf course community. Maybe it's a spot closer to downtown. You're not limited to age-restricted neighborhoods. And when I talk about, college town vibe in a few minutes, you'll see why having that flexibility to choose your neighborhood matters so much. Universities definitely bring energy to certain parts of town. We do have a handful of smaller communities that cater to retirees. Homestead Hills is one of the best. It's on 37 acres, just minutes from Wake Forest University. They've got cottages starting in the mid-2s and villa homes starting in the 1s. And independent living care, assisted living, and memory care all on site. They also have 24/7 security, maintenance, free living, dining services, and wellness programs. There's also Heritage Woods, which has independent living and assisted living with studio 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. There's Brook Ridge Retirement Community, Salem Town are 2 other options, and Arbor Acres. While we don't have the Villages, we do have options, and for a lot of people, the fact that they can live in a regular neighborhood and still enjoy an easy, active retirement, well, it's a plus, not a minus. Plus, you've got world-class healthcare right here, which is a huge reason why people choose Winston-Salem. But if you're dead set on that resort style, master plan, community lifestyle, Winston-Salem probably isn't going to have what you're looking for. You'll need to expand your search to other parts of North Carolina or possibly other states. Here's where people coming from warmer climates start to reconsider their move. A lot of retirees I talk to are looking for a place where it's warm and sunny all year long. They want to ditch the snow, skip the freezing winters, and enjoy never-ending springtime. And if that's for you, I've got some news. Winston-Salem's not your place. We have all 4 seasons here. And I mean all 4. Summers are hot and humid. Winters, well, they can be cold, and we do get snow and occasionally some ice. Spring and falls are beautiful, but they're transitional, so the weather changes. The hot season lasts for about 3 months, from late May to early September. July is the most humid, and it definitely gets muggy about 80% of the time. Average highs in July are upper 80s. Not unbearable, but it's not what I'd call comfortable either, especially if you're not used to humidity. And winters, well, they can be cold. The average low in January is 30 degrees, which means we're hitting freezing regularity. The average high is 49 degrees. We get some snow too. Snowy period runs from like basically end of November through very beginning of March, usually end of February. February is the snowiest month with an average of 3.4 inches. Like, it's not Minnesota, but it's enough that you'll need a winter coat and maybe a snow shovel. It melts so fast, you might not need that shovel. Here's what's interesting. If you're someone who loves the 4 seasons, this is a positive. We get a beautiful fall with amazing colors. The spring is gorgeous with flowers blooming and everything coming back to life. And let me tell you about a trend we see all the time. We have what we call halfbacks. These are folks who come from the north, they move to Florida, thinking they want that year-round heat. But then they realize they miss having seasons. So they move halfway back to the Carolinas. So clearly a lot of people prefer having 4 seasons once they experience the alternatives. We're also one of the bluest sky states in the country. There's a reason why they call it Carolina Blue. Greensboro, which is just a short drive away, records 109 sunny days and 107 partly sunny days every year. That's 216 days with sun, which is about 60% of the year. So even though we have seasons, we still get plenty of sunshine, and we get more blue skies than most places. So if you're dreaming of endless summer, and you're gonna wanna keep looking, but if you're okay with a little variety, appreciate the beauty of changing seasons, Winston-Salem has a lot to love. Now, there's one more thing that surprises people about Winston-Salem, and it's something you wouldn't necessarily know from just visiting. Winston-Salem is home to 6 colleges and universities. That's a lot for a city this size. So we've got Wake Forest University, Forsyth Technical Community College, Winston-Salem State University, Salem College, University of North Carolina School of the Arts, and Piedmont International University. Altogether, we're talking about over 21,000 students. That's a big chunk of the population. For some people, that's a positive. It brings energy, culture, and a youthful vibe to the city. And there are events, performances, sports, and all kinds of activities tied to the universities. If you like being around that kind of atmosphere, you'll probably enjoy it. But if you're someone who's looking for a more mature, quieter community where most of the neighbors are around your age, Winston-Salem might not be the right fit. The median age in the city is about 36 years old. In the broader metro area, it's 41, which is about 16% of Forsyth County residents are 65% or older. In the city itself is about 14.5%. So if you want the feel of an older community, a more mature community, you're not gonna have that everywhere in Winston-Salem. You're not going to get that feeling of living in a retirement-focused community unless you seek out a specific neighborhood or development. But here's the good news. Each university is pretty much its own little bubble. Wake Forest is over on the University Parkway in its own little community. Salem College is in the Old Salem Historic District, its own community. Winston-Salem State is in the northeast part of the city. They're all so sectioned off that if you lived here, you would literally never even know we had 6 schools. So unless you're living right next to a campus, you're not gonna be dealing with the student population on a daily basis. Most retirees choose neighborhoods that are far from the campuses. They go about their lives without ever feeling like they're in a college town. And if you're looking for a more mature feel, there are plenty of established neighborhoods that fit that. Clemens is a great option. Sherwood Forest or Old Sherwood Forest are both quiet with mature neighborhoods and big trees and nice homes. Buena Vista and Ardmore are two other areas with historic character and a much more settled feel. So while Winston-Salem does have a college town vibe in certain areas, it's possible to avoid that if it's not your thing. You just have to be intentional about where you buy. Now, I want to be clear. These are reasons why Winston-Salem might not be for you, but for every one of these challenges, there's a positive side. So at the end of the day, Winston-Salem is a fantastic place to retire for a lot of people. It's not perfect for everyone, and I think it's important to go into the decisions with eyes wide open. If you're still considering Winston-Salem for your retirement and you want to work with someone who knows these communities inside and out, I'd love to help. My contact information is in the description below. And if you want to learn more about where the best neighborhoods are to retire in Winston-Salem, check out my video here. Thanks for watching. Talk soon.